It was supposed to be just another episode for a struggling true crime podcaster until they found a torn, dust-covered journal hidden beneath a collapsed food court bench in an abandoned Ohio mall. What started as a curiosity unraveled a 30-year-old mystery of a missing security guard, stolen goods, teenage vandals, and a secret so dark someone is still willing to kill to keep it buried. This isn't just a cold case, it's a warning. Some ghosts don't stay in the past. In the quiet suburbs of Ohio, nestled between faded strip malls and long-abandoned factories, one stood the North Pine Galleria Mall. Opened in 1982, it was the epicenter of community life. A bustling complex filled with family-run stores, an arcade that echoed with laughter, and a food court that smelled of soft pretzels and fried chicken. For over a decade, it thrived. Holiday seasons brought record foot traffic. Local teens made it their hangout spot, and department stores competed for dominance. The mall represented the American dream in miniature. Commerce, comfort, and community all under one roof. But by the early 1990s, the dream began to fade. Economic downturns gripped the Rust Belt. Manufacturing jobs disappeared. Families moved away or faced hardship. Then came the rise of big box retailers and early online shopping. Store by store, North Pine lost tenants. The arcade closed first, then the bookstore, and finally the anchor department stores. Within a few years, the once vibrant mall became a shadow of itself. By 1995, it was nearly empty. Only a handful of businesses remained, and the building was scheduled for closure by year's end. Amid the mall's decline, George Lyman worked as a night shift security guard. He was 42 years old, a retired Army sergeant, and a father to a young son. Described by former co-workers as disciplined but kind-hearted, George took his job seriously. While many employees treated the dying mall as an afterthought, George maintained patrols, filled out reports meticulously, and took it upon himself to protect the property as best he could. With his wife working 2 jobs to support the family, George's modest paycheck helped keep them afloat. On the night of November 17, 1995, George clocked in for his usual shift at 9 p.m. He spoke briefly with the janitorial crew before beginning his rounds. At 1:36 a.m., the cleaning supervisor passed George near the loading dock behind the food court. That would be the last confirmed sighting. By morning, George had vanished. His patrol cart was found abandoned near a service corridor. His flashlight was lying on the floor nearby. The lens cracked and a streak of dried blood marked the handle. A half-eaten sandwich and thermos sat untouched in the break room. Security footage was useless. Several cameras had stopped recording days earlier, reportedly due to budget cuts. There were no signs of forced entry, no known witnesses, and no trace of George's body. The initial investigation yielded little. Police conducted interviews, swept the premises, and questioned the few remaining mall employees. George's wife insisted that he would never abandon his post, let alone leave without saying goodbye to their son. Colleagues confirmed that he had been on edge in recent weeks, increasingly suspicious of after-hours visitors, but no one took the warning seriously. Some believed George may have suffered a breakdown. Others whispered rumors of foul play, that he had gotten involved in something he shouldn't have, or perhaps discovered something he wasn't meant to see. Several unsubstantiated theories took hold over the years. One claimed that George stumbled upon local drug deals being conducted in the abandoned mall wings. Another suggested he had discovered evidence of theft or embezzlement by someone within mall management. Still others hinted at more sinister explanations. Teenage gangs using the mall as a meeting ground for dangerous rituals, or transient squatters who had become increasingly hostile toward outsiders. Each theory, though popular in local rumor mills, lacked evidence. As months turned into years, George Lyman's disappearance became a cold case. Officially, the police listed it as a missing persons file with unknown circumstances. Unofficially, it was an unsolved mystery that the town quietly chose to forget. The mall itself was boarded up in 1996, condemned shortly after, and left to rot. Nature began reclaiming the structure. Mold infested the walls. Weeds broke through the parking lot, and the food court ceiling eventually collapsed from water damage. Urban explorers and amateur ghost hunters occasionally posted photos of their visits online, but none discovered anything of substance. The tragedy left a permanent scar on the Lyman family. George's wife moved away in 1999, and their son eventually changed his last name, unable to cope with the weight of his father's legacy. For the town, North Pine Galleria became a symbol of decline, not just economic, but moral and communal. It was more than just a mall that died. It was a part of the town's identity that decayed and disappeared. The absence of resolution left a lingering unease. With no body, no confession, and no clear motive, George Lyman's vanishing stood as one of Ohio's quietest cold cases. Over time, even the newspapers stopped mentioning it. The final article ran in 2005, a retrospective titled "The Guard Who Walked into the Dark." It ended with a single chilling line: "The mall is gone. The man is gone. But something remains." And for nearly 3 decades, that was the end of it. Until a hidden journal surfaced and someone finally asked, what really happened to George Lyman that night? Nearly 30 years after George Lyman's disappearance, the North Pine Galleria Mall stood as a decaying shell, avoided by most and remembered only in fragments by the older residents of the town. For some, it was a place of childhood nostalgia. For others, it was a symbol of decline. But for independent podcaster Rachel Myers, it became the center of an investigation that would shake everything she thought she knew about small-town secrets. Rachel was researching forgotten cold cases across the Midwest when she came across George's file. The lack of media coverage, the odd disappearance, and the eerie silence surrounding it all raised immediate red flags. Most cold cases had at least rumors or online theories. This one had almost nothing, as if someone wanted it forgotten. Intrigued, she began digging into local archives and interviewing former employees. That led her to a decision: to enter the abandoned mall herself and search for anything that had been left behind. What she found deep in the decaying food court changed the case entirely. Wedged beneath collapsed debris near an old fast food counter was a weather-damaged backpack, wrapped in plastic and duct tape. Inside was a small journal, filled with shaky handwriting, dated entries, and the initials GL. The ink was faded but legible. The first entry was dated just 6 weeks before George's disappearance. The journal described a disturbing pattern. George had been documenting strange occurrences during his nightly patrols. Store gates left open after being locked, stockroom lights flickering on by themselves, distant voices in the closed-off wings of the mall. At first, he suspected teenage trespassers, but over time, he became convinced something more organized was happening. He detailed witnessing late-night activity near a back corridor where high-value electronics had recently gone missing. The thefts were never officially reported, and George believed mall management was intentionally covering them up to avoid insurance issues or lawsuits. Then came the most alarming entries, those mentioning a group of teenagers who frequented the mall after hours, accessing it through a broken service entrance. George claimed they were tied to someone powerful. He referenced one individual repeatedly, calling him Protected One, a young man whose father held a prominent local government position. George suspected the group was stealing from stores, staging fake break-ins, and possibly laundering stolen goods through a shell business connected to the mall's operations. In the final entries, George wrote that he had confronted one of the teens and was preparing to hand over his notes to a local reporter. He expressed fear for his safety, stating that he believed "they're watching me now." The last entry ended mid-sentence. The discovery of the journal sparked new interest in the case, but it also brought danger. Rachel received anonymous emails warning her to stop. Her podcast accounts were hacked. She reported a suspicious car idling outside her apartment for several nights. It became clear that the story George Lyman tried to expose in 1995 still had the power to silence those who uncovered it. George Lyman vanished nearly 3 decades ago, but his journal refuses to stay buried. This story reminds us, some truths don't disappear. They just wait in silence. And when justice is denied, the past always finds a way to resurface. If this cold case left you with questions, theories, or chills, don't stay silent. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you believe George's story still deserves answers. And subscribe for more deep dive true crime stories that demand to be heard. Because every voice, every clue, and every view brings us one step closer to the truth. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.